Pwnage had originally entered the market with one of the few mice out there that offered customization and easily swappable plates. While they were definitely doing something crazy at the time, things have changed a lot since then. While the 3335 was an extremely popular sensor at the time, it definitely had its issues, as we'd soon find out. While their only offerings at the time were the Ergo shape, Pwnage has come out swinging with their first shape inspired by the Viper Mini. With complete customization, a 3370 sensor, and easily removable plates, there's a lot on the table here in terms of features. But will it be enough for Pwnage to stand out today? But before we get started, I just wanted to make it clear that this unit was sent out for review by Pwnage. You should know that all opinions here are my own, and this does not affect my review in any way. My name's Aithey, and this is the Ultra Custom Symmetrical 2 from Pwnage. Pricing here starts at around $109.99 US. The dimensions are 118 by 60 by 38. The Symm 2 comes protected, surrounded by black foam, lining the empty space of the box. You're given the mouse, a cable, an additional solid shell back cover, a wireless extender, and some button spacers for adjusting the click feel for your preference. The wireless Symm 2 uses a 3370 sensor, while the wired version uses a 3389 sensor. This mouse feels on par with something like my G Pro Wireless, Model O Wireless, and other top wireless mice. I never encountered any issues during the hours of gameplay testing that I put into this, from Twitch shooters to tactical shooters. It should serve you well in a competitive setting. DPI on this mouse maxes out at 19,000 DPI. DPI steps range from 400, 800, 1200, 2400, 3200, and 6400 by default. DPI steps are also indicated by the scroll wheel LED. Polling rate ranges from 125 Hz, 250 Hz, 500 Hz, and 1000 Hz at the max. The software this time around finally looks different for a change when compared to the previous Ergo mouse and its software. The first tab allows you to change your button profiles with up to 4 presets. You have 6 binds to change per profile in total. You're also able to adjust your debounce time from 0 milliseconds all the way up to 30 milliseconds. The second tab allows you to change DPI settings from 6 preset DPI stages, along with adjusting polling rate, DPI, RGB effects, and brightness or speeds. The third tab lets you play with your own macros. And finally, the fourth tab gives you the option to change your RGB and effects to fit your theme. Additionally, you can change your RGB sleep time and prevent the mouse's RGB from turning off every time you move your mouse. In any case, it's an eyesore. I typically get thrown off by the RGB turning on and off, so this is definitely an option I recommend changing. I never had any issues with the mouse dying on me in an intense session or being inconvenient to charge in any way. Battery life here is close to some of the top wireless mice out there. The Pwnage Symm 2 can last around 80 hours with what I'm assuming is RGB off, but I could be wrong, and about 180 hours in what Pwnage calls office use. Those office use measurements are likely with the mouse set at 125 Hz or 250 Hz based on your typical office mouse use. If you plan on gaming, 1000 Hz is the way, but if you're desperate to save battery life, I highly suggest 500 Hz polling for squeezing out the most playtime from your mouse. The Symm 2 also only takes 2 hours to fully charge. But before we get into the buttons, here's a quick sound test. Mouse 1 and Mouse 2 are using, you guessed it, Kale GM 8.0 switches. These have become increasingly popular for what I would consider being a good middle ground for a light to heavy switch. Clicks have a low pre-travel, but have a fair bit of post-travel, especially so if you're a heavy-handed user with your clicks. Button wobble and side play is practically non-existent, as the buttons are essentially locked in place here, which is great. Clicks feel incredibly light and snappy, some of the best I've felt in Pwnage's lineup. The main buttons have a slight groove for your fingers to rest, though not nearly as noticeable as something like the MZ1's comfort grooves. Side buttons have medium post-travel and pre-travel, right about where the switch itself actuates, as I would consider this very little post-travel. The Symm 2 scroll wheel uses an F-switch encoder, similar in feel to the glorious mice scroll wheels. The scroll movement feels smooth, while the scroll steps are subtle but defined, and feel pretty consistently clean with its movements in regards to any rattle that could be present in a scroll wheel. The shape of the Symm 2 is pretty close to that of the Viper Mini from Razer, but wireless, obviously. Low at the front with some height at the middle, and a rounded hump at the back. The sides are flat until about 1/4 of the way up from the front, which then widens at the back. Keep in mind, There is a dip in the middle of the mouse here, though it should be noted, as with most shape clones, it's not an exact replica. The base of the shape is pretty wide near the back compared to the Viper Mini, but it's still pretty comfortable for me personally. I think I prefer this over the original Viper Mini shape. Although the grips aren't included with this mouse, I was sent a set for review as well. The custom mouse grips, as Pwnage calls them, are pretty solid when compared to other popular brands like Lizard Skins, Marucci, or Hotline B2. They look very similar to some of the BTL grip designs if you're familiar with their brand, though I have no way of confirming if these are exactly those. Their grips are also 0.4 millimeters in thickness. While they don't feel sticky like Lizard Skins, they have this tacky feel similar to stock Ultralight 2 Infinity Skins, but better. The best way I can describe it is that these are essentially the Ultralight 2 stock grips if they were actually good. They're great grips, and you get 4 in total for mouse 1, mouse 2, and the sides. Pwnage has usually offered the same colors you'd expect with their mice, and there's always been plenty of options. The newest edition of their metallic coated plate is definitely an interesting one. While I wasn't sent any for review at this time, it's nice to see that they're still looking for new ways to present their customers with even more customization at the heart of it all. As always, the removable back plates and main buttons come off rather easily while being held securely with the power of magnets and makes swapping them a breeze. Though something I have noticed is that this time around, there's a much stronger adhesive holding the battery in place, which could make things difficult if you decide to attempt to modify the internals in any way. Rather unfortunate, but I suppose it's to help with making sure that the battery doesn't budge from any nasty falls or swings. The cable here feels identical to what the old Puck Ergo was using, at least going based off memory. Thankfully, this time I did not have any issues with the poor adhesive holding the wireless extender together like the last time. Things have been pretty strong here in regards to the durability of the extender base. The cable itself is pretty stiff in my opinion, and while Pwnage does offer some other colored cables similar to Glorious, I cannot comment on the quality of those cables as I've never had the chance to play with one. I'd likely suggest buying a cable from your local paracord maker anyways, as it's always great to support those smaller businesses, if you don't mind the wait times. The mouse feet are pretty solid for stock skates. I've never personally had issues with Pwnage's stock skates, and I don't see any reason to go and immediately replace them when tested across cloth and glass surfaces. The Symm 2 weighs around 71 grams when using the honeycomb body and cover, while the solid shell plus solid body would be around 75 grams. My unit weighs in at around 71 grams and about 75 grams with a bit of cable. Build quality here when compared to the original Puck Ergo release is night and day. The build here is extremely solid, with no side flex or creaking to be found anywhere on my unit. No issues to be found with the side buttons either. It should be noted, however, that one of the Puck Symm 2s that I was sent for review did have an issue with the right click, as it was giving off a weird sound and feel that could interfere with your gameplay. So keep this in mind, as there may be some issues with tolerances in the right or left buttons. I can't confirm this, and I don't know how widespread it is, but I'm hopeful that things like this won't be too common. But I did send that mouse back, and Pwnage is definitely aware. The announcement of the Symm 2 had me worried, as it was announced on April 1st, and pretty much anyone could have been taken for a fool to believe in it. But I'm happy to see that it's the real thing, and finally in my own hands. Considering how much things have changed since the original Ergo days, I'm happy to see that Pwnage is actually improving and taking steps in the right direction. It will be interesting to see how Razer reacts with their own release of the Viper Mini Wireless whenever that day comes, and we know for sure that Pwnage has more shapes on the horizon.